How do you figure out drapery height? It's confusing, it's frustrating, and even most window treatment professionals shy away from it. But not us. Not today. I'm Joey and I own Layered Light, a window treatment company. Have you ever ordered drapery or picked a panel out at a store and found out when you got home that the drapes were either way too short or too long? You're not alone. Drapes are actually one of the hardest treatments to measure precisely. Why? Well, because unlike other window treatments, like roller shades, you have to be extremely precise with your width and height measurements, and you have to measure for several different things. Now, I'm not going to go through all of them right now, as that would be a considerably longer video, and there are very few people out there who would want to talk about window treatments hours on end, but I will help ensure that you get the right length the next time around, or at the very least, you know who to contact when that time comes. Spoiler alert, it's me. So let's just talk about drapery height for now. Okay, so we have a standard size double window here with a nice set of pinch pleat drapes on rings and a rod. What size drapes did we need to cover this opening? Well, let's start by figuring out our overall height. We get out our trusty tape measure and we decide that, for the sake of easy math, we want the drapes to be 100 inches tall. That's a measurement from the floor to the top of where we want the drapes. Good to go, right? Well, not exactly, as that's our overall height. The actual drapery length is 98 1/8 inch in this example. Let's understand why. See, drapery math is a special, more frustrating kind of math with a lot of variables. For this video though, we will keep variables to a minimum. Once again, we have an overall height of 100 inches. That's going to be our measurement from the floor to the top of the drapery rod. First consideration is when we look down here at the bottom of the drape, that's the gap. And no, I'm not referencing a clothing store popular in the 90s. Typically with drapery, we will want a 3/4 inch gap from the floor to where the drapery starts. This keeps the drapes clean and tailored, a word that you will hear an awful lot in the interior design world. So we will subtract 3/4 inch from our overall height. Next, we need to figure out our rod height. Now, rods come in many different sizes: 3/4 inch in diameter, 1 1/8 inch, 1 3/8, 2 inch, the list is endless. But for our purposes, we'll say this is an 1 1/8 rod, which is a common size for decorative and traversing metal rods. So since we know the overall height, we know the gap we want to have at the bottom, and now we know our rod size, we can say that the drapery length we need is 98 1/8 inches. For this specific drapery. Remember when I said that there are lots of variables for drapes? Well, here are a few other considerations that will affect how you measure. Are you getting a grommet or pinch pleat drapery? Or one of the other styles such as cartridge pleat, ripple fold, rod pocket, etc. Each of those could affect how you would measure for the drapes. A grommet drapery, as an example, won't measure the same as a pinch pleat because in the last example, we were measuring from the bottom of the rod down. But as you'll notice, a grommet style drape sits above the rod. So now we need to know how far above the rod the material will go and if that particular manufacturer will take that into account when we give them our measurement. Typically they do. So our measurement will significantly increase, which is why you often get cheaper drapes made in bulk from big box stores and hang them on the wall, only to find they are much shorter than what you anticipated. Back to our math. What about your pin setting? What's a pin setting? I'm glad you asked. Drapery pins on a pinch pleat drape, like what we've been using for our example, sit on the back of the drape behind the pleat. They have a pin that sticks up into the material and a hook on the other side that will slide into a carrier attached to the rod. The carrier may be a small plastic piece or a ring. The ring is what we have in our example, and that's primarily used for decorative drapery, not traversing, but that's another topic for another time. The pin setting will determine how close the drapery will sit to the rod. In our picture, I would guess that this is a 1/4 inch pin setting. The higher the number for your pin setting, the closer the drapes will be to the rod. 1/2 inch and 3/4 inch pin settings are very common. Higher pin settings are used to hide more of the rod, but since the rod will be visible anytime the drapes are open, it makes more sense to have a nice looking rod and use a standard pin setting. Lastly, you'll want to consider any surroundings. Take time to look at your window or door and see what could be in the way regarding the height of the drapes. Do you have a window above the lower opening and you want the rod to land right in the center of those two openings? Extra time and finesse will be needed should you go this route, but you can do it. What about your ceiling? Is there a pitch to the ceiling restricting how far you can bring your rod, causing you to lower the overall height or restrict the width? What about rugs and air registers? Any type of vent that protrudes or a really thick rug that may be going in later if it's not there now, or even a simple floor mat may need to be taken into consideration. Don't miss these simple things that can completely ruin your day. Well, what did I miss? What other considerations are there for drapery height? Let me know in the comments below. It will help all of us to grow, and that's important. Of course, don't forget to layer on your thanks by giving a like, a comment, and subscribe. It helps the algorithm and my ego. Until next time, this is Joey with Layered Light. See you all around. I don't know if I like that outro. We'll try again next time. Layer on the outros.